All right, we are recording.
All right, good. So this is the recorded version that's actually going to get seen by people after we record it, right? Typically what that means. Well, good. Okay. Hi, welcome to what do we call this thing? The Diabetes
Fix
Blood Sugar webinar, or the Type 2 webinar, or the Barton webinar, whatever we want to call it these days. But it is
You gotta roll with the punches.
Yeah.
So
It's the world's premier and best webinar that features Dr. Scott Saunders and me and Leslie Prinz here with Barton Publishing, Barton Nutrition. So welcome. Do we have people hop on? We do. Excellent. And this is awesome. So today we're going to answer questions, and we are also going to talk about, drum roll, the heart. We're going to talk about the heart today. So that's going to be good. So we're going to wait a little bit for people to jump on here. People will continue to join us. Say hello in the chat and give us a comment. If you're on Facebook, are we going to be on Facebook? I think we will be here pretty soon. So that's good. If you're joining us on YouTube, and we appreciate you watching this. Hopefully you're a subscriber. If not, you can hit the subscribe button over there or over there somewhere and get notified of new videos. Good morning, Grace. Good morning, Eve and Terry. Good morning, Patrick. All right. Love to have our regular attenders. I think, it'd be fun just to have like the Brady Bunch open the videos. So we can have like 9 people on camera sometime. Maybe we'll do that at the end of today.
Or I wish their faces would pop up when they join.
Yeah.
Just so you can see them. I muted you, Dr. Saunders. Sorry.
Well, good. All right. Well, I think we're about ready. So I will quick give the what do we call it? The info that everyone loves to hear. So this is the Barton webinar. BartonWebinar.com is the URL that you can register to join us live on this webinar. In the future, we do this every Tuesday at noon Central Time, which is 1 Eastern or 11 Mountain or 10 Pacific. And if you're beyond that, like I can't convert all those time zones, but yeah, go to bartonwebinar.com, register. We love to have people live. This is where people that have purchased the Diabetes Solution Kit typically this is why we do this webinar, to support our customers that have bought this. People that are just starting their journey on type 2 reversal, and people that have questions, people that need encouragement, motivation, and questions answered from the good doctor, Dr. Saunders. So, and as a quick disclaimer, this is for informational purposes only, so don't do anything dumb and blame us for it. All right, Dr. Saunders, take it away. Let's talk about
so today we're talking about the heart. And the diabetes, diabetes affects the heart in a lot of different ways. That's not just one thing. It's not just one specific problem. That there's a lot of things going on when you have diabetes. If you have type 2, then you have insulin resistance. And insulin is a growth hormone that causes your liver to make more cholesterol. So you have higher cholesterol when you have type 2. It's often called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome, high cholesterol, abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, and high blood sugar. And this syndrome, or collection of symptoms, is all related to the heart. And so the heart is such an important organ. It pumps the blood through your body. Without the heart, you die. You have to have a heart. That's why throughout folklore and in all of the poetry that we have, we always talk about the importance of the heart, that you have my heart. So diabetes can have your heart, and you can take your heart back if you understand what it does and why that's important. So for example, one of the things with like higher cholesterol and increased inflammation in the body, you get more deposits of cholesterol in your arteries. And those deposits can clog your arteries. They narrow the passageway for the blood to flow through. So there's less blood getting to your heart specifically, but anywhere else in your body. You can have less blood getting to your brain And your brain uses 20% of all your blood, 20% of all your oxygen and nutrients and everything go to your brain. And so if you narrow that down and have less blood flow to that, that's one of the reasons that Alzheimer's or dementia is the number one cause of dementia is diabetes. So the brain's important. And anywhere else in your body, if you think about why do people get peripheral neuropathy? Why do they have numbness and tingling in their feet? And then ulcers, and then infections, and then amputations. Why? It's a lack of blood flow. So all of this blood flow is really, really important. So how do you get the blood flow to your heart? One of the things that we do while during the program of lowering blood sugar is to lower insulin. When you're eating a very low carbohydrate diet, you start making less insulin. Now, I want to reiterate this. This is one thing that's in the book that we talk about of protein. Protein can also increase insulin, so you have to be careful of protein too. That if most of your food is high in fiber and low in calories generally, you're better off than eating a low carb diet that's super high in protein. So what that does is elevates insulin. So when you're on phase 1 of the program, it lowers your insulin down. You start making less cholesterol, and you can actually use up some of that cholesterol that's deposited in your arteries. Now, if you want to use it all up, we have the 610 reset. The longer your stomach is empty, the more you switch to fat burning metabolism, the more you start taking out that cholesterol out of your arteries. And you can actually clean out your arteries entirely. I had a patient, this is really interesting. He came into me because he went to his cardiologist, and the cardiologist said, if you don't get a cardiac bypass, a 5-vessel bypass, within the next month, you're going to be dead. There's just no way you can survive. He couldn't walk across the room without getting chest pain and stopping and having, oh, I can't breathe. His heart just was not functioning well. He had something called congestive heart failure. So his lungs would fill up with fluid, and his legs are all swollen and full of fluid. And so when he got on the treadmill, the cardiologist is like, dude, you're in big trouble. This is really bad. Your arteries are so clogged. So he came to me and he said, I don't want surgery. I definitely do not want that. I know the surgery is a temporary solution for a long-term problem, that you're bypassing something and then those bypasses get blocked up, and I want to fix the problem. So I said, okay, here's your options. And I gave him a whole bunch of options. He said, I have already decided what I'm going to do. I read a book about fasting, and I'm going to fast for 30 days with water only. And I'm like, okay. He said, will you help me? I said, sure. So he went on a 30-day water fast. Now, I'm going to tell you something that he did wrong so that you'll know if you ever think of doing this, that you won't make the same mistake. He was drinking a lot of water, and he drank way too much water because he's eating nothing at all. So he depleted his sodium reserves from his body because he was drinking so much water that he stood up too fast one day and got dizzy and fell down and split his forehead open, had to get stitches. The doctor in the ER, I guess it was 14 days after he started his fast, the doctor in the ER was aghast. It's like, what? You haven't eaten in 2 weeks? That's crazy. And the guy said, well, you know, now that I think about it, I can walk across the room without chest pain. So I'm actually better. So I'm going to keep going. And the doctor said, no, don't go. That's terrible. Don't go. He said, no, I'm going to keep going. And he did. So after 30 days of fasting, we measured all of his numbers. His numbers were down to normal. He looked really good. His cholesterol was good. His blood sugar was good. He no longer had congestive heart failure. He started playing tennis. He'd played tennis a lot before. He didn't just take it up. He's 70 years old, so he's been doing this for a long time. But he quit playing tennis before. Now he's back to playing tennis. So within 1 month he could play a full game of tennis without any chest pain at all, and then go to the gym and lift weights and have no chest pain. And so now he is chest pain free, his arteries are cleared out, and he no longer has diabetes, no longer has congestive heart failure, and he fixed the problem in only 30 days. The amount of time that it took the cardiologist to say he'd be dead by now, he's actually fixed it and he's all better. So there are ways to clean out those deposits out of your arteries, the cholesterol deposits. But the best thing is, don't put them in the first place. So if you have type 2 diabetes, you want to get that insulin way down. And the way you do that is either by not eating, like our 6-10 reset program, or fasting, and then avoiding carbohydrates. People think, oh, you have deposits of fat in your arteries, therefore it's from eating fat. That's not the case. It's actually from carbohydrates that does that. Okay, now the second thing, remember this guy had congestive heart failure also, and he just had pre-diabetes. He had a little bit of high blood sugar, but it wasn't in the diabetes range. Congestive heart failure is another common problem with diabetes. It's not from blockages of the arteries that happens. It's another issue, and that's an issue with energy production. Each cell in your heart has about 40% of it. It has thousands and thousands of a little bacteria called, well, something like a bacteria called mitochondria. And these mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. They are what makes the heart work. And so if you think about it, the heart never gets to rest. It's going beep, boom, 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 100,000 times a day and never gets to stop. So how does it keep going? Why doesn't it need to rest? Well, because you have all those mitochondria in there that are just pumping out energy, and so it never runs out of energy. Whereas your muscles, if you're lifting weights, you're going to run out of energy. Your muscles will run out of energy, but your heart never does, because it's mostly, well, almost half of it is mitochondria constantly pumping out this energy. Now, what happens if they're not working? Remember, diabetes is a problem with energy. It's a metabolism problem. It's an inability to make energy. And that's why the brain has problems. We talked about that before. And now we're looking at the heart and going, oh my gosh, what if the heart only has 20% mitochondria or less? For a muscle cell, no problem, but for the heart, it becomes a problem. And they just can't keep up. And the heart just loses its ability. So instead of pumping like all the blood out every time, it only pumps this much. And so you're not getting all the blood through your body. Yeah, it's pumping through, but it's not going fast enough. It's not keeping the oxygen up enough. And so the blood's backing up because it's not getting out of the heart. And so it backs up where? Into your lungs. So your lungs start filling up with fluid. And then what happens? Then you're getting low oxygen. It's a terrible situation. So what you want to do is keep that energy production going. And the way to do that is to build mitochondria. So being able to switch from sugar burning to fat burning is a very important part of that. And that's one of the reasons in our reversal program, the Diabetes Solution Kit, we have a phase 1 where you're training your body to burn fat. That's what it does. Mm-hmm. That helps your heart. And if you burn fat, you also take cholesterol out of your arteries. Your insulin goes down. You get less insulin resistance. You get better energy production. And that's what saves your heart. What saves your heart is all of those things that happen actually in phase 1 of our program. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So congestive heart failure, that's different than cardiac arrest, right?
Yeah. Cardiac arrest is myocardial infarction. That's where you're not getting any blood to the heart and the muscle just stops. It doesn't beat anymore because there's no energy in there to beat. That's myocardial infarction. And that's usually a problem with oxygen not getting there, from the blood not circulating there. Whereas congestive heart failure is a gradual decrease in energy, so that it still beats, but it just beats a little less and less and less until it doesn't get very much blood out at all.
And do you have chest pain with that congestive heart failure?
Often, no. Often the very first sign you have is you're already in trouble because you can't breathe because your lungs are filling up, or your legs start swelling. You get swelling around your ankles, and sometimes that's the first sign anybody gets. But often they will have had other signs like, gosh, I can't do what I used to do. I used to be able to, walk a mile, and now I can barely get across the street without huffing and puffing.
Yeah. Well, my friend Dale just had a stent put in a couple of weeks ago, and he had been experiencing chest pain since March, but he didn't tell anybody. And I have a feeling like that's kind of a common thing, like, and probably in guys especially, like they get stubborn and it's fine, it's maybe my heart, but I'll deal with it later. But like that's not necessarily the best thing. So yeah, I mean, what you just talked about, going from sugar burning to fat burning and fasting, and by fasting and doing, minimizing carbs, and that is the way to take care of that. But what do you recommend if somebody is starting to feel some chest pain? Maybe they're out gardening or walking and things are, they're feeling like, this isn't quite right. What do you recommend they do?
That is an urgent problem. The first thing, if somebody's already having chest pain, you need to know why. You need to know if that is blockages in your arteries, or if it's some other reason. Sometimes it's a valve problem. Sometimes it's another circulation issue, clotting problems. You need to find out why first. And that's why a good cardiologist can help you with that. And they'll look at your heart. Sometimes they'll have to do an angiogram or something, and then they'll look and they'll say, okay, this is what you have. One of the things that I use, because it's really easy and I don't have to have any specialized equipment, I send somebody for a CT coronary calcium score. It's a CAT scan. And it's like a flash photography because it's a heart, it stops your heart. And while it stops your heart, it takes pictures of your heart and looks at how much calcium deposits you have in the arteries of the heart. And that's a really good indicator. It's the best indicator of how much heart disease you have. It's even better than a treadmill. Treadmill tests are not predictive of anything. You can't say, oh, your treadmill test is bad, therefore, you're going to have a heart attack in a week or a month or what. Whereas with the CT coronary calcium score, you can look at a high calcium score. For example, the guy I was telling you about that couldn't walk across the room, and he was going to have to have surgery within a month. He would be dead, kind of thing. Yeah, that's what the cardiologist told him. We did a coronary calcium score on him, and the number is less than 100. Ideally, it should be 0. You should have no calcium deposits in your arteries at all. But under 100 in a 70-year-old is considered okay. A little higher, maybe 200. I've seen people as high as 400. He was 1,200. He had a lot of calcium deposits in his arteries. And so it's been about a year now. He's doing a lot better, and he's about due for his follow-up coronary calcium score, because he's still fasting periodically, and he's keeping his blood sugar down and being very careful with his diet. And so we want to see, because you shouldn't do it in less than a year. So that's a reasonable thing. If you're having chest pain and you ask your doctor to order a CT coronary calcium score, that'll give you a good idea of, oh, I have blockages in my arteries. It's non-invasive. They don't have to put anything in your vein to shoot dye into your heart or anything like that. Mm-hmm.
What are some of the top maybe nutritional supplements you recommend in addition to the 6-10 reset, which is stop eating by 6 o'clock so that you can have an empty stomach by 10 o'clock and go to sleep and optimize your human growth hormone, and then minimizing carbohydrates. So the question by Krish was about CoQ10, but yeah, can you talk about that or any other supplements that you recommend that are helpful?
Yes, there's a really good book written by Dr. Stephen Sinatra, who's a cardiologist in New York. And he has done a whole lot of research on this and his own personal research. And he's looked at what to do for heart problems like congestive heart failure and myocardial infarction and blockages in the arteries and all that stuff. And so he's written a book called Reverse Heart Disease Now. And in there, there's like the four main nutrients that people are lacking that get congestive heart failure, where their heart isn't beating hard enough, where it's just barely pumping the blood. And so the four nutrients are magnesium and coenzyme Q10 and L-Carnitine and D-Ribose. It's interesting, ribose is a 5-carbon sugar. It's a sugar that's the backbone of DNA and RNA, and it allows cells to reproduce. Well, one of the cells that reproduces in your body are those little mitochondria. And so if you've diminished the amount of mitochondria in your heart cells, you could increase it using these, with these four nutrients, as long as you're not missing any other ones. But these are common ones that are missing. Magnesium, because in our culture, we don't have a constant supply of magnesium. You know, magnesium comes in nuts and seeds, whole grains, beans, peas, lentils, and green things. Anything green is green because of magnesium. So none of those are staple foods. We don't eat beans every day. We don't eat greens every day. And when we do eat greens, it's like this iceberg lettuce has very little magnesium in it. It's not really the dark greens like kale and spinach. So magnesium is an issue just because we don't have staple foods that are high in magnesium. Like most other areas of the world do. And when in grains, for example, I said nuts, seeds, and whole grains, that is, you know, when they process the grains, when they take out the germ and the bran, they leave out all the magnesium. So all of our breads and cereals and the grains that we eat are processed grains that have little or no magnesium in them. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, magnesium is an issue. CoQ10 is something that we make in our bodies, and it's made out of cholesterol. And so if you drop your cholesterol, if you are taking drugs like statins that lower cholesterol, guess what? You're lowering coenzyme Q10 as well. And that is absolutely essential for energy production. You have to have CoQ10. And so, so any of you who have been on a statin, you definitely should be taking CoQ10. And if not, you probably should be taking CoQ10. CoQ10, I measure it a lot. I don't often find it deficient, but it is, when people have congestive heart failure, it is a common deficiency in that condition. L-Carnitine. L-Carnitine is essential for bringing energy into the mitochondria. So you increase your ability to use especially fats when you have enough L-Carnitine around. And when you don't have enough L-Carnitine around, then your muscles can be depleted of energy pretty easily. You fatigue easily. And so that's why L-Carnitine. And it's also a common deficiency. It's found everywhere. L-Carnitine is everywhere. It's in food. We make it. It's not like you can't get it. It's just that it's a common, it's common not to have enough, especially as we age and people that have congestive heart failure. And then the last, D-Ribose. I talked about D-Ribose, why that's important. So those are the four nutrients for your heart. Okay. And anybody who has congestive heart failure should take all of them.
Okay. So Chris had asked if we have, if there's anything that has all four of those nutrients, and we don't currently, but we have been working on a heart formula, and so that will be coming. We do, however, have magnesium, which is, I mean, this is so important. If you want to talk a minute about, you already mentioned it for the heart, but so we have this product. It's in our store. If you go to bartonnutrition.com, I don't know if it's on bartonwebinar.com yet, but bartonnutrition.com has it. and you can see our label on there. But this is a spray, like you can spray it like this is a brand new bottle. So you spray it on your arms, on your chest, on your back, on your head if you're bald like me, back of the neck. But no, this is great. Like I use it for relaxing muscles. If I have any type of stiffness or soreness or restless legs, I don't know if it's officially restless legs, but in a hard time sleeping, I use this all the time. Like 50 sprays a day, and it's really good stuff. It doesn't leave a filmy residue. But talk a little bit more about magnesium, you know, maybe for diabetes and blood sugar as well. You talked about the heart, so.
Yeah, magnesium is important for there are hundreds of enzymes that require magnesium, hundreds of reactions in your body that are going on all the time that require magnesium in order to function well. So it's not just one thing, it's not just the heart, but because it's so important for energy production, all of the B vitamins, for example, well, not all of them, but most of the B vitamins require magnesium as a cofactor in order to function. So people often think, oh, I must be deficient in vitamin B12, and they're just deficient in magnesium. I've had cases of that where I've done this test on their nutrient evaluation of all their nutrients, and it looks like the B vitamin levels are low, but the B vitamin levels are fine. It's really a magnesium deficiency. So magnesium is very important for a lot of things. Like Joe mentioned, muscle relaxant. It allows muscles to relax. So when calcium gets into the muscle cell, it causes contraction. And then in order to relax, the body has to pump magnesium in and calcium out. And that magnesium going into the cell allows that to relax. So all of the relaxant things are all magnesium related. And that's like muscle spasms, you relax them with magnesium. Going to bed at night when you're tense or nervous or anything, then taking magnesium often at night. I've had a lot of people tell me that they sleep a lot better if they take magnesium. It allows them to relax. Relaxing the brain, relaxing the body, relaxing the muscles, and relaxing the heart. So you think of the heart as always like an aggressive pumping, pumping, pumping. And we often forget that the other half of that pumping is relaxing. And the energy step that's required for the heart to work is actually the relaxing part. So without enough magnesium, it doesn't relax very well either. So everything in our body is functionally dependent on magnesium. And it's a very common deficiency. So, you know, magnesium is really good.
Yeah, that was really good insight, sir. You never think about the heart resting. Like it's just, you think it's constantly going, but it actually is resting for, you know, a split second, but it's necessary. Well, okay. So Krish has a question related to the heart, and that is, I'll just read it. So I'm a type 2 diabetic. My lipid panel was measured 2 weeks ago. HDL, LDL, and total cholesterol are all normal except the triglyceride, which is close to 200 and deemed to be abnormal. Will this affect the heart, and how do I get triglyceride levels lower?
Wow, Krish, that's good. Okay. No, it's not bad. The cholesterol, HDL, LDL, okay, those are fine. As long as that's fine, I don't know the numbers, but if they're okay, they're okay. The actual optimal level of cholesterol is 220. That's the optimal level. And the numbers that you see, the normal numbers, are not health numbers. They're really numbers that are related to the sales of Lipitor. So the company that makes Lipitor decides what the level should be, and when they want to sell more Lipitor, they go, oh, we'll just lower the LDL, the normal LDL, so that more people will need Lipitor. So that's traditionally the way it's done, instead of the other way, which is what the optimum level is. So there was a huge study done on cholesterol, and it was in Korea, 12 million adults, and they looked over time of what were the risks, and it was just death to cholesterol level. And in every case, in every age group except for young women, that's young women, but when women get older, then they're the same as men too. There's this U-shaped curve where you have high death rate for low cholesterol And then the optimum level is 220, and then it goes up again on the other side with high cholesterol. So 220 is the optimum level. And then your question, Krish, now is triglycerides. High triglycerides just means that you're not bringing those into your cell. You're not burning fat efficiently. So all you need to do is go on phase 1 of the program, and you could go by triglycerides, but you could also measure your blood sugar. When your blood sugar is consistently between 70 and 90, so 70s and 80s, or if you're in Canada, between 4 and 5, then you can pretty much, if you were to measure your triglycerides, then you would realize that since you can burn fat, you'll be able to bring the fat into your cells. Now, here's interesting about the supplement idea of if you take L-Carnitine, it will help you to bring those triglycerides into your cells and start using more fat for energy as well. So you can add that in for triglycerides. The only other thing that I usually add when people have really high triglycerides is an omega-3 oil. Omega-3 fats balances that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio and decreases inflammation and allows you to use that more. So triglycerides are not a problem like with your heart. But they do indicate a problem with energy production. So if your triglycerides are high all the time, congestive heart failure is still a possibility because you have an energy problem.
What's the normal level for triglycerides?
Under 150 would be about normal. Okay. So 200's high.
Yeah. All right, a couple quick fun notes here one from Patrick. He said he had great numbers late last week. His blood pressure was 117/65, blood sugar 83, and his weight is down 13 pounds in 3 weeks. So let's hear it for Patrick. Woo, 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 woo. How do they do that snap? So he said the 610 reset, the diabetes solution kit, and fasting really work. And thank you. So yeah, it certainly does work. That's awesome. Good to hear that. Thanks for sharing, Patrick. And Bonnie said, I want to thank you. I started in September and my A1C just came back at 5.3. The rest of the
wow.
test is normal. Yeah, way to go, Bonnie. Woo, woo, woo. Awesome. All right. Okay, so Sir Charles, he asked this before. It was about blood sugar numbers. I think this would be good to cover it, also from Michael. So let's start with Michael's. This is kind of foundational. Michael's a new customer of the Diabetes Solution Kit. He just received the blood sugar supplements recently, but his big question is, where do I get started? So he's got the Diabetes Solution Kit. What do I do first? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so in the beginning of the book, it's like first steps, preparation. You go through all this preparation, like asking yourself, why do I even want to do this at all? Why don't I just enjoy my life? And if I have to get high diabetes, oh well, I'll just deal with diabetes and do whatever I want. So why do you want to get well? Is it fear of like losing your kidneys and going on dialysis or getting amputations or going blind or Alzheimer's disease? So is it fear of complications, or do you really want to be healthy? You want to live a long and healthy life. So going into your why, and then once you have a reason why, then you can start looking at, okay, what do I do? As you're reading through this, what do I eat? How do I eat? When do I eat? So what you eat, when you eat, how much you eat, all of those are big factors in what's going on. So the biggest part of it is wrapping your mind around, number one, why you're going to do it, and then what you're going to do, how you're going, what you're going to do, and then how you're going to do it. So that, and the book kind of guides you through that, guides you through each step of first why, and then what's going on, and then how you're going to do it. So then the how, it's like outlined. You take the first step, you're gonna eat these foods and not these foods. And so you start with a diet. That's how you get started. And you know what? It's okay to like dabble in. Some people I live near the ocean, and I live in, it's actually Northern California because I'm north of Santa Barbara, and the water's colder at the beach. So we have people come from all over the place, friends, relatives. They come to visit us, they stay with us, and they always want to go to the beach. And the water's kind of, you know, in the 58-degree range, 56, 58. It gets in the 60s sometimes, but it's kind of cold water. So so people get in, and some people are just, they're dippers. They just dip their toes in, they get a little more, and then they run it back and forth, the waves catching them. And some people just like, they run into the water, dive in, and they're all the way under. So if you're a dipper and you want to just like try out for one day, have a low carb diet, and then go, gosh, you know, I only ate 20 carbs today. And then the next day, oh, I'm going out to dinner, and don't do it. At some point though, you make a commitment and you go, okay, I'm going to do this until what? You have to have a goal of until my blood sugar for 1 week is between 70 and 90, or until I weigh my ideal body weight, 140 pounds or whatever. You get an until, and then you make a commitment, I'm going to do this until. And if you mess up in the middle, so what? You just go back and be honored, and because you have a goal, you have a place to go. Does that make sense?
No, that's great. Yeah. So the diabetes solution kit, if you have the printed copy, yeah, just start at the beginning, start reading it, start filling it out. It's in a workbook form. You know, have a pen handy and fill out your why. Really think about, like, you know, some people it's because they want to be around for their grandkids, or they want to be able to play with their grandkids. Some want to be able to continue, you know, being able to play golf or tennis or pickleball or whatever it might be. Yeah, what is it? What's your why? And so phase 1 is really, you know, probably the most important thing, and that's just eliminating carbohydrates. And so we have the grocery list, we have the recipes, we have, you know, the recommended foods that are high in nutrient and things to avoid. You know, a lot of it is just like, you know, Dr. Saunders, you came to my pantry in the kitchen and started chucking out, you know, it's cereal and crackers and things like that. That could be a therapeutic thing as well. So just like start chucking out the food that, you know, you're going to be tempted with later. Just get rid of it.
Yeah. And then Joe goes, no, not that. Yes, it goes.
Not the Oreos. Yeah. So, well, that's a great question. Hopefully that's helpful to you, Michael, and anyone else that's wondering where to start. Okay, let's get to Sir Charles here. Blood sugar. Okay, let's see. I think he's got it posted in the chat and on the questions. All right. So please give, like, what is the acceptable or recommended blood sugar readings, or what are good blood sugar readings before a meal? Let's start with that one. What's a good, yeah, if you're fasting?
Oh, anywhere between 70 and 90.
Okay.
That's a great blood sugar reading.
Yep.
Before a meal.
Yeah. And if you're Canadian and metric system or whatever?
That's between 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Okay. All right. What about 2 hours after you've eaten a meal? What should your blood sugar readings be?
Under 120, and ideally under 110. But if you're under 120 after a meal, that's okay.
And what kind of food will spike that higher than that? High carbs, right?
Oh, no, well, high carbs, definitely, but high glycemic index is, there's glycemic index and glycemic load. So you may find that certain fruits, like especially watermelon, has a higher glycemic index than ice cream, even though ice cream clearly has a higher glycemic load, which means that there's a lot more calories in ice cream than there is in watermelon, you know, ounce for ounce. Yeah. And people are different on how they handle those kind of things. So some people with ice cream, their blood sugar will go up and stay up for a long time, whereas with watermelon, it'll spike and then come back down quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Blood sugar when you're fasting, like typically, whether it's like overnight or several days, you're still probably going to be in that 70 to 90 range, right?
Yes. Yeah. It should stay in that range.
Yeah. And then he said other, but I'm like, if your blood sugar goes below 70 or 60, like what's a dangerous, like if you're too low?
Below 40 is dangerous. Above 40, you'll feel it. Most will feel it. And what's really interesting is if you've had blood sugar really high for a long period of time, it's always in the 200s or 300s. And then you go, okay, I'm going to just do this all at once. And I'm just going to eat a very low carb diet and eat very little food. And it gets down into the normal 70 to 90 range, you will feel it. And you'll feel like, oh my gosh, I got hypoglycemia. I can't think. I'm fatigued. I can't even get out of bed. I got a headache. You may get all of the symptoms of hypoglycemia, even though you have normal blood sugar. And that's because the constant high level causes so much resistance to insulin that you can't get the energy into your cells when it's dropped down that low.
Yeah. So we got lots of questions today. Sir Charles asked about fasting and max number of hours between meals. I'm going to encourage you, Charles, to go to our YouTube channel and find our webinar that we talked about fasting, and we really dug into that. Next question was about our updated solution kit. So we just got news today that the download version, the ebook version of the diabetes solution kit that has the new recipes is now available. And so if you're able to log into your account, they should have the updated recipes. We're also going to be sending out an email notifying people this week. Leslie, could you put that on our to-do list to make sure we get that done in the next 2 days here? I think Kevin's already taken care of that, but we'll be sending a link out to all of our customers so that they can access that. So yay, good news there. All right. Nelson asked link to bartonwebinar.com if you could do that as well. Okay, so Grace, she started fasting 1 day a week on Wednesdays. It works. I miss the caffeine more than food. I can talk myself out of hunger. Is this a good way to do it?
Caffeine works on the adrenal glands, and it increases the stress hormones. And technically, if you're not eating, coffee or caffeine or tea isn't going to be a big issue, but it still can. Some people are going to get more insulin resistance with caffeine than others.
Yeah, all right. And another question from Grace. When should I be measuring blood sugar if I do it once a day? How often, number of times a day should I be measuring?
Okay, so the best time to measure is in the morning before you eat, because that way your stomach's empty, and so you're looking at what your natural blood sugar is, and if that's always between 70 and 90 on a fasting specimen, then you're doing really well.
Awesome. All right. So really once a day is fine.
Yeah.
And do you feel like it's important to measure 2 hours after eating just to kind of get that 1 to 2 hour level, or is that?
Yeah. You know, if you're curious and you want to know what does food do to you, especially if you're looking at certain foods, like when you're in phase 2 and you're starting to add foods in, then that would be a great time to wait 2 hours and check your blood sugar to see, oh, I just had a bunch of ice cream. What does that do to me? Or something benign, like I just had a bunch of beans. Well, beans are carbohydrates. Wonder what that does to me. So, you know, checking on those things, that's where the postprandial or the 2 hours after eating is a good idea.
All right, let's circle back a little bit related to the heart. So Claire said she doesn't have any chest pain, but she starts getting dizzy when she leans over to scoop up kitty litter. So doesn't want to fall into the kitty litter box. But talk about like getting dizzy, and is that related to the heart, and what could be going on? It's blood sugar.
Great question. Okay, so the moral of the story is don't scoop up kitty litter. Leaning down, bending over, and standing up, the dizziness that's called hypotension, low blood pressure. And that has more to do with your hydration status than with diabetes. And the relationship to diabetes is often that your kidneys have to get rid of extra water when they get rid of extra sugar. So if your sugar is high, then the kidneys are dumping sugar out in the urine, but they're also dumping water. So people often forget that they're dumping water. So it's easy to get low blood pressure just from low volume hypovolemia. And so when you don't have enough blood volume and you lean way down, you stand up, then the blood runs out of your head, and you go, whoa, you get that dizziness. Some people even pass out and faint or have to sit down or something. So that's a consistent thing. There's other reasons for it, because the blood vessels dilate when it's hot. So if you're hot, then your blood vessels dilate, and they don't constrict very quickly to push the blood up to your head. So you stand up quickly and you get dizziness. There's other reasons for doing that, but on the diabetes realm, what we're talking about, it's often because the blood sugar is too high for a long period of time.
Awesome. All right, rapid fire. How do we obtain D-Ribose, from food or by supplements?
D-Ribose is in most plants. It's in a lot of food. If you have congestive heart failure, it's a good idea to take D-Ribose just to add extra. And it is 2 teaspoons a day, because it comes in a powder form. So you take it in teaspoons.
Okay.
And it's sweet. It tastes sweet. So add it to your coffee. I don't know. That's what people do.
All right. Good question here from Carol. Are blood sugar numbers the same for men and women?
Yes. Men and women, there should not be a difference.
Excellent. Leslie, do you have any questions that came in on Facebook?
Except for pregnant women, in the case of pregnancy, they allow normal blood sugar to be a little higher. So instead of in the 110 to 120 after a meal, you can get up to 150. They still consider that okay. I don't think that that's a good way to look at it, but the reason they do that is they don't want to put pregnant women on insulin or other medications if they don't have to. So they allow more leeway. But so during pregnancy, it might be a little different, but still the optimal range, even during pregnancy, is still that 70 to 90 range.
Okay. Somebody that doesn't have their name on here just says Cloud Systems, but it says, I need help badly, need to speak to someone. And so I feel like we should probably give out your office number here, Dr. Saunders.
Yeah. Have them call my office.
Yeah. What's that number again? And Leslie?
805 688 7171.
All right, 805-688-7171. Okay, yeah. If you feel like you want to talk directly with Dr. Saunders, you can go through a process to become his patient, and there's an intake process and all that, and a cost, of course. But you can call the office and talk to his one of his assistants, and they can help set up a time to make that happen. So highly recommend. Dr. Saunders, you've been my family doctor for over 10 years, and yeah, it's super valuable. So as you guys can all tell, he's the best doctor in the world. So, all right.
Okay.
Well, okay, in my world. Okay, let's see. We answered Krish's.
Someone is just wondering on Facebook why the picture behind Dr. Saunders is crooked.
It's not.
I said, actually, I think it's the angle. I think it's the angle.
See? There it goes.
Yeah, okay, see, it's perspective. There we go.
There. Okay, there.
There, good. All right. You proved me right. Thank you.
Awesome.
Can't stand that crooked picture. It's messing up my OCD.
Okay, Sir Charles, if a person's blood sugar is within good range, does that mean that their A1C is most likely good as well? And vice versa?
Most likely. However, that's really interesting. I have had people with high blood sugar on a fasting specimen where they draw their blood. The hemoglobin A1C is low. It's like, how do you have a blood sugar, of 150 or so, something like that, with a hemoglobin A1C of 4.8? And so we answered that question. We found out why she was having all these issues was she was getting hypoglycemia. So she was low a lot of the time. And at the time she did the test, it happened to be high. But so she was going up, she was spiking up, and then she would spike insulin, and then the blood sugar would drop too low. And that's why she was having headaches and fatigue and other problems.
Okay. My dad.
What's really nice about the hemoglobin A1C, it's kind of an average over a month or two kind of average. The blood cells live about 3 months, and the sugar attaches to those blood cells. And so we're measuring the amount of sugar that's attached to the blood cells, the hemoglobin in the blood cells. So, so they live about 3 months, so that they recycle. And so it kind of gives it's not really 3 months, kind of like a 1.5, 2 month average of the blood sugar. It's really helpful.
All right, Krish is dying to know ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, and where was his question back here? The squeaky wheel gets the grease or whatever. I appreciate that from Krish. So, all right, will ashwagandha and L-Carnitine taken together help reduce triglyceride levels?
Ashwagandha is an herb that works on the adrenal glands. And it's called an adaptogenic herb. It's an Ayurvedic herb that it takes the circadian rhythm and kind of just downshifts it to adapt to stress so that you don't have excessive amounts. So it has kind of a calming effect on the adrenal glands. And so it may lower insulin resistance to some extent, but I don't know its effect on triglycerides. I don't know how that's going to work. And the L-Carnitine, I haven't seen any tests on L-Carnitine, but it definitely does help you use your fat for energy, the triglycerides for energy better.
Awesome. All right. Patrick shared some more info on his health journey, and just, yeah, awesome job there, Patrick. Keep up the good work. All right. Scott said maltodextrin is worse than sugar on the glycemic index, yet foods that include this ingredient get away with showing 0 on the nutrition label. What's up with that? How can we?
Okay. Well, because maltodextrin is a starch. It's a maltose polymer starch. It's a type of like a starch. But gosh, I don't know how they get away with it, but because it should show up on the sugars and starches. Oh, I know why, because they don't show starches. So they show sugars, which are the simple sugars, which are glucose, fructose, and sucrose, and I guess lactose. So that they'll have sugars, which are either monoglycerides or diglycerides, but they don't show starches. So we have to infer starches. When you look on the label, you have to take total sugars and then subtract the total sugars, subtract the sugar and the fiber, and then you get part of that is going to be maltodextrin. So, I don't know.
It's a little sneaky then, huh?
Sneaky. It's sneaky. Yeah. There's so much that goes on that's sneaky. Yeah. You know, I was looking at this COVID-19 stuff, and in the United States they did several studies on something called hydroxychloroquine for this disease, because in other countries they're using it all over the place successfully, and they're really sneaky about it. They do it for they do a 5-day study. And in 5 days, you don't have enough time to make a difference. It takes about 2 weeks to show the difference. So then they go to Brazil and we're going to do a huge study on hydroxychloroquine in Brazil. And then they stop the study at 12 days. So you never get to see the results. They're just so sneaky. It makes me mad.
Are you still having a hard time prescribing that to patients?
No, it's really weird, actually. It's the pharmacists that have the option of not giving it. And so I was having a problem with one pharmacy, and a patient wanted their grandpa to have it, So they went around to pharmacies and said, okay, will you? And they finally found one that would. So I sent the prescription, and their father got it. So then I just keep sending them to the other pharmacy. So now I have no trouble getting them.
Oh, that's good. But other people probably are having trouble. So I guess maybe the moral of the story is call around, or ask your doctor to call around to find the pharmacist that will. Yeah, I don't get it. It's like, for whatever reason, a lot of people don't want something that actually works for people out there. But well, and we haven't seen that too much resistance on the vitamin D side of things, which you don't need a prescription with. Thankfully, you can just go and you can go outside in the sunshine and increase your vitamin D levels, or you can supplement with it, which we have in our Synachroma product as well. That's probably why it's maybe not. They're not gonna ban vitamin D. I mean, it's like. Anyways, okay. Well, what time is it? All right, we got a couple minutes left here. Leslie, do you see anything I missed here? Leslie, we need to hear from you. All right, why don't you come on here?
And so quiet today.
Yeah, you've been quiet.
It's been good. I've been chatting with people here on our Facebook. We're live on Facebook as well. So if you have questions over there, feel free to ask there.
I'm glad we all talked to each other before this, so we could know what to wear, so we could all match.
That's
exactly.
True.
Yeah.
We planned it.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I do appreciate. I love that we have some of our friends who have been on here week after week, and they're able to help others. So I really love being able to see that in the chat, that they're able to give some advice and what's worked for them. So we've had our own little mini conversations going on in the chat, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Did we do? Christian asked how often a stress test for heart
that's
function.
a good one. We can close out with that one. So talk about stress tests. Is that the same thing as a treadmill test?
Okay, a treadmill might be a stress test. There are other ways to stress the heart. Some will do a cycle, some will do a treadmill, and they'll give you a adenosine, a drug, an IV drug that causes the heart to beat harder to stress the heart. So there are other ways of doing that. But the answer to your question is no. A stress test is not a good way of determining whether you have heart disease or not. So for example, you may have chest pain at times, and you may notice that before you ever do a treadmill. If you're taking a walk or running, or you're in a hurry, or you're doing something that stresses you, and you start getting chest pain, and this becomes consistent, like every time. I can't even get across the street before I have chest pain and shortness of breath. Then that's your personal stress test. But what you'll notice is sometimes you go across the street just fine and you don't get chest pain. And then sometimes you do. And so it's not consistent, depending on a lot of other factors, like how much constriction of the vessels there is, how hot it is outside, how much circulation is needed to other parts of the body. So there's other factors involved besides just how closed up the arteries are. So because of that, the stress test that you do in a doctor's office, it may not be reflective of what's going on in your heart. That's why I do the coronary CT calcium score. I find that is a lot more predictive. And actually the studies have shown that too, that it's more predictive.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're having some good conversations here amongst attendees, which I love to see. Patrick is helping answer some questions for Michael. And that reminds me, we do have a Facebook group that you can join and hop in there. There's several other members in there. So if you go, you can find that. You just go to Facebook and search 610 Reset group. And you can find it there, and then just request to be added, and we'll add you. Or if you want the link it's in bartonwebinar.com. And so, yeah, that's like our own little community where we share tips and things like that, similar to what Patrick is doing right here. So thank you, Patrick, for doing that, helping each other out. And then Dr. Saunders, this was amazing. Today we covered a lot of good ground, learned a lot about the heart and all sorts of different stuff. So close us out here with your last thoughts.
Okay, so remember that I talked about how you need to build mitochondria. There was one other thing I wanted to mention is that fasting induces a state called the anabolic state. It's the anabolic metabolism is where you're building muscle. And the other thing that you're building is mitochondria. So, so one of the things that helps the most is fasting. So if you do periodic fasting, like with the 6-10 reset, you can actually skip dinner and have 2 meals a day at 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. And that will actually improve your function because you'll have more time with an empty stomach and be able to reset your system even better.
All right. Awesome. Great webinar. This was great. So Sandra, I will check into, she was asking if she can order Synachroma in Canada. Send me your email address real quick, and then I'll follow up with you on that. So, okay, that means I need to, well, that means I have to wait, and I guess you could stop the recording. So yeah, all right, thanks everybody. Don't completely shut us down here, Leslie, if you can handle it. So good stuff, great questions, great answers. Keep up the good work, and